starting with Vardorvis here. Some people say that they think this is the hardest fight of the four. It's definitely up there, that's for sure. But I definitely struggled more with Leviathan overall. For Vardorvis, I think that the things that are phenomenally helpful for this fight are going to be highlighting his axes, both when they spawn and when they're in flight. That helps. I use that as a visual indicator for axe skipping. I think most people do. And then the other thing I didn't expect to be such a huge help was the Vardorvis head overrides to make his projectiles for magic and range appear like the orbs in chambers. Those are so nice. I didn't see why anyone needed those, because his head projectiles are by default blue and green, but it's way more unclear. I don't know. It's you can react much faster with this plugin, so highly recommend getting that one. For axe skipping, I would definitely recommend practicing a few regular Vardorvis kills with returning to the middle of the arena after every axe sequence instead of hanging out on the edge of it. I think most of us will hang out on the edge of the arena, which makes sense for normal KC because it stops him dashing around like a psycho like that. Also, a little note for that, if you happen to use these exact tiles, you can always walk one south when he's darting around, and it will never spawn a spike there. It does look random, but it's not random, it is in a pattern. And so even though I cannot see that tile because of the angle of my camera, I know that it never has a spike on it, so it's okay to utilize for that. Speaking of camera, this is a really weird angle, but there's a reason for it. I do recommend getting used to an angle like this so you can see the entire arena and see where those axes are spawning. It will help you out with your plan so that you're not reacting as much when you see the sequence of axes spawn. So even though this is a little bit strange to get used to, I like it more because if you were to just look at that top-down view, then you have to zoom out a lot more, and that makes it harder to be precise with your clicks, which in this fight, of course, you want to. Any OGs will remember how hard Vardorvis was to click on when he came out. He's still pretty hard to click on, so you can see it's going crazy here at the end of the fight. The best tip I could pass along for you here is that you just want to get into the mentality of tanking anything else before you tank an axe. You can see I got down to 1 HP there. If an axe were part of that, any of the things that I tanked, I for sure would have been dead. Axes can hit you up to 96, outpray melee on, and half of that with it on, so really that's the most deadly attack he has. So it's taken me a while to recover here. You'll see I failed this Captcha. That's another thing, I did not expect the Captchas to be so punishing. I never got used to doing them super fast in normal KC, so be aware of that when you're learning this fight. But otherwise, just try to dodge axes as much as you can, bring a few combo eats. You'll see I'm just guzzling these Rambo and Guru combos, and I was able to bring it back and get the KC. Not the cleanest, but I'm still happy with it. On to good old Duke. Definitely the easiest fight of the four. I guess you could say that Whisper might be easier. Depends on just which specials you have a better time with. Overall, I found the memory attacks from the Whisper to be a little bit harder than Duke, but that's just because of my goldfish brain. For Duke, yeah, pretty chill. You just prep 3 potions instead of 2. I would recommend dropping a bunch of hard food next to Duke so you have a bunch of room to go through here and grab everything. Just play it slow. Don't try to be, tick perfect. You don't want to waste any food to getting hit by the eyes or any of the shadows on the ground. So just play it chill. Prep up those 3 potions, pick up your food, and start the fight. You'll notice I'm wearing a Slayer helm that does reduce the damage from the gas, so you might as well do that, and also just bring a lot of brews. This is honestly a fight you don't have to be very good at, to be honest. You can just kind of brute force it. And Duke also has a lot of RNG with how many acid attacks he gives you with how hard the fight ends up being, so you can definitely just throw yourself at this boss and you will get the clear in a pretty easy sequence at some point. I got pretty lucky. You'll see I don't get hit with a single acid attack below the 25% threshold. That is one thing to note here, is that you really want to pay attention to his thresholds. He changes how he does the mechanics a little bit here at 75%, 50%, and 25%. So I recommend using Red Eye Jedi's guide for this. I found it very helpful. That's where these tiles are from. That's just helpful for the acid walk, though I will talk you through that. I'm looking at his health right here because you'll notice he only spits out one gas cloud, but as soon as he hits 75%, so now he's going to be spitting out 4. So my cue for this is to just do the normal step back when you see the icicles, and then click on these 2 back tiles, and then you're okay to click on the boss as soon as you hear that 4th ball, that 4th acid ball come out. So then that's when it's locked in on the back row here. You'll see the acid walk here looks maybe a little bit tricky, but it's a lot like solo chambers if you're used to that, where you just want to move anticipating the acid walk and then ditch the walk if he didn't use it, and otherwise keep going with it. So you'll see all the way up until he's 25%. What I'm doing is listening for that last gas explosion to be launched, clicking on the boss, and then clicking behind the pillar, clicking 1, 2, 3, 4 in sequence, and attacking on 4. If you're using a 5-tick weapon. If you're using a 4-tick weapon like an Emberlight for the whole kill, which you totally can, totally okay to just miss ticks there. So you'll see right there, I'm just clicking around in that square pattern, that 1, 2, 3, 4 attack, 1, 2, 3, 4 attack. You'll see things get a little bit dicey here. You want to get him out of that 33 to 25% threshold as fast as possible, so do recommend dumping Void Raker specs here. You can see that's what I'm trying to do, but I get interrupted by an acid attack, so it's kind of awkward. I'm using my 4-tick weapon, but he's not yet into a 4-tick cycle, so I'm taking a bunch of damage, trying to recover here, trying to get him below 25%. That's why you want to save your specs, is because at 33% he spawns this black orb, which is really annoying to navigate around. Just do your best, honestly. But at 25% he switches to a 4-tick cycle instead of a 5-tick cycle. That's where you want to be on your Emberlight or your Arclight and start going like that. So the only difference here is obviously it's a 4-tick cycle instead of 5, so you're attacking more often, you're stepping back more often. But for the acid walk, instead of clicking behind the pillar and then attacking on 4, you just click straight into 1 and attack on 3. So really is not too much of a change, just getting used to that mentality. I don't think it happens to me a single time here. You'll see I'm anticipating it though. I click to attack Duke and then click 1, 2, 3, and so I'm ready for it, but it doesn't ever happen, so I just end up throwing myself at the Duke. So that works out. Obviously the eye special, I don't think there's anything new with that. You can see once he gets nice and low, I just switch to the Void Waker while I'm waiting for the last gas bomb, and we're done. Oh man, Leviathan. Yeah, this one took me so many attempts and one full crash out at some point, but Leviathan was so hard. Definitely the best method for doing this is going to be the Shadow Barrage spam. So you'll see here I only get 1 attack after each special attack, and then I'm right into the next special attack, doing most of the damage during the lightning skip. Problem is, Leviathan takes 75% damage during every special attack, so it definitely feels like it takes a while to get him to move along. A couple of things before we get to Enrage phase that I want to note here. For one, I learned this boss on hard mode. I don't have a Web Weaver on the Iron, and when I was practicing on the main, I decided not to use one there either so that I would get good practice, and I'm glad that I did. It takes so much longer to do the Enrage phase without a Web Weaver bow. It's seriously night and day. If you're a main, I would recommend, highly recommend buying that. If you can do this fight and spend the money on the orbs, you can definitely afford a Web Weaver. You're probably using a T-bow already, so shouldn't be a problem there from a funding style. From an Iron style, totally possible to do without a Web Weaver, but it is a struggle. One thing I didn't expect about this fight to be so hard is the timing on the Shadow Barrage is really, really tight. There are so many attempts that I died to just because I was 1 tick off of hitting him in the weak spot, and then if that happens, it's such a mess. He might spawn debris where you don't want him to, which is like going to make you instantly fold in Enraged mode, or he's just going to start shooting at light speed at the orbs, trying to keep up with, especially with that tornado later on in the fight. It's going to be a real mess, so I would prioritize getting used to stunning him when you're nice and close like this. So you definitely don't want to. When I did normal KC, I was stunning him from way back here and taking my time running around. You can't be doing that. You have to stun him from right up close, which I feel like does mess with the muscle memory. So you can see I'm right outside. These tiles closest to him indicate his melee range, so you can see I'm right outside that, and then coming back here to set him into phase. You'll get used to it, but you definitely want to put a high priority on that. Now, lightning skipping, I think, is pretty easy. What I'm doing is listening for an audio cue to start running. You can kind of hear, I'll point it out with the subtitle when it pops up, but there's like a little gargly sound. I don't know how to say it, some kind of aquatic sound. But yeah, not too bad getting in cycle with the lightning, and then you're just attacking on those corner tiles, running back and forth between these two blue tiles. We will utilize that back row once the tornado spawns, but we'll talk about that more when we get to it. That tornado is definitely really annoying. I would recommend paying a lot of attention to it until you get enrage phase, and then once you get to enrage phase, honestly, don't pay that much attention to it. You have your hands full already with keeping on top of the movement and the prayer. So my best advice is to just ignore the tornado once you hit that enrage phase, otherwise pay a lot of attention to it. Dealing with the breeze here, what I do is the normal walk attack that you do when you're setting up these lines of debris that you saw me doing for phase 1 until the tornado is one tile away from me, because then if I pause to attack him, it's going to hit me. So once that's the case, that's my cue to just start moving one tile at a time and really getting behind those nice lines that I set up earlier. This is a good example of lightning with the tornado. You don't really have to think about it too hard. You can just run to the next quadrant and start running lightning there. Ideally, you shouldn't have griefed any of those tiles with the debris, so you should be able to utilize them all. You have to use that back row of tiles when the the tornado is on the same row as that melee row, so you'll see when it's on the same row with me, that's when I use the back tiles, otherwise I'm using the front two tiles. Good opportunity to eat a piece of food when you are running to stun him if you're not full HP. You can see I do the walk method there until the tornado's caught up, and then I just start moving one tile at a time, making sure to not grief my tiles that I'm going to need for enrage phase. So I want to talk about starting off the enrage phase, because most of this is pretty standard until then. So you want to get him to about 21 to 23%. Ideally with that, then once you spec him again and hit him from the weak spot, it should send him straight into enrage phase. There, you do need to take note that he will drop one plus-sized piece of debris wherever your position is when the enrage phase starts, which is when that Abyssal Pathfinder starts to spawn. So the best thing you can do is make sure that you're up against the wall right when he gets into enrage phase. Especially if you don't have a web weaver, you want to make sure that you'll have plenty of time to loop around the arena once, because that's right about when you should be ending the kill if you haven't died yet. So that's definitely ran me into trouble there. Also bear in mind that for enrage phase, the Abyssal Pathfinder is way bigger in AoE than it is in the normal fight. So I would recommend not worrying about staying right next to its center. Don't be afraid to run a few steps ahead of it if your attack is on cooldown. I will say that one of the hardest things that I had to do about this enrage phase is I was used to doing my like 1500 normal Leviathan KC with a blowpipe for enrage, so I would just do attack step, attack step, attack step. Way too much individual clicks for moving for Awakened Leviathan is what I noticed. You want to get used to just attacking once and then running a big stretch of 3 or 4 ticks and then attacking again. So you'll see my order of operations here is always prayer orbs first, movement second, attack the boss third. Attack the boss when you have time, but look at how long I'm just like clicking to move and then back to my prayer book, clicking to attack, moving quite a bit ahead of that Pathfinder. Don't worry about the tornado, just tank it. It's only 40 something damage, you can tank it. But yeah, don't focus on trying to heal at any point during this, just focus on your prayers and your movement and you will get the KC. Okay, my bad on this one. I did forget to hit the recording button till the first couple of hits of this fight. Wanted to leave a pretty chill one for the end, and that's Whisperer. I really enjoyed this fight, to be honest, except for the one memory puzzle, which, like I said earlier, the Duke section did mess with my brain a little bit. So for Whisperer, it's really not too bad. You make these L movements just the same as you do in the normal fight. It dodges that big pattern. Eventually she'll spawn a new pattern of tentacles that you can react to. It's really not that bad. The leech is going to be the same as the normal fight, you just don't have that many spare ticks, so if you're worried about running into it a little bit late, then just don't attack like what I'm doing right here. Otherwise you have to be pretty tick perfect if you want to attack during that, but I just wouldn't worry about it. You're not going for any kind of speed, you're just trying to survive, so same deal as before, just get on some of these. I have these little squares marked around the whole fight. Just got on one of those so you have nice easy L movements, and just keep at it. You gotta rotate your prayers more often than you do in the rest of the fight. Really want to watch your prayer points and restore them often. Whisperer really does drain your prayer, and in that enrage phase especially. Now for all these memory attacks, these were the things I found the most trouble with. You can see I'm just sitting there forever, barely getting it in time. One tip that I got that was really helpful for me is to look for the 5th pillar, the one that you're gonna have to end up on, and then try to solve 1, 2, and 3, because then 4 will reveal itself, so you kind of only have to remember 4 instead of having to remember 5. You're gonna have to do that 3 times throughout the fight, so really the most important thing you do is click that blackstone fragment, find the full health pillar, and then find the 3 pillars you're going to use for those first 3 dodges. And once you have all that information, you can click it to get out of it. You cannot afford to stay in the Shadow Realm the entire attack like you can in the normal fight. Would practice, at least in the normal fight, getting used to all of these attacks, not staying in the Shadow Realm. So you want to memorize those leech configurations, you want to memorize the pillars, and for these ghosts here, normally you do Venator Bow for the normal fight. For this one, just go ahead and hit only the Sanitas ghosts. Those are the 4. There's 4 of them. You have to clear all 4 or you will insta-die. I did lose my first attempt to that. I thought there was only 3. You'll take a bunch of damage, you'll lose a bunch of prayer, but who cares? You have infinite HP for this fight, realistically. Whisper doesn't give you chip damage, so it's not that big a deal. You have to be on Ancients for this one. You can't really use Thralls because she runs after you instead of walks after you when she snares you, so you got to be quick on that Ice Barrage. Do be aware of that. If you're used to having plenty of time to freeze Whisper, you do have a lot less time to do that. Right around here, she'll throw out different configuration tentacles at you. They'll be in a big block, and you just have to move perpendicular to that block. We're doing leeches again, so I'm just going to take a glance here. There's only 4 leech configurations, and of that, they're always mirrored on each side, so there's really only 2 per each side that you have to memorize, if that makes sense. But would recommend while you're practicing for this boss in the normal KC to get into the habit of hitting those outside of the Shadow Realm so that you can memorize the configuration more. It just gives you a lot more sanity to work with. The goal here is we want to be full prayer, full sanity, full HP going into enrage phase. You can see that's that new tentacle configuration. You can react to it right there. You did see I clicked the L movement first, realized what was going on, and then clicked out, and so that's fine. It gives you plenty of time to do that. Really, this fight is not bad at all. This probably is pretty easy. I would say mechanically the easiest fight for sure, but it was still a little bit hard for me because I lost so many attempts to this attack. Right here, I would just stare at this and have no idea what the solve is until it was too late, and if you tank even one of these waves, it absolutely decimates your sanity. You just don't have enough to go into enrage. You're going to go insane unless you get some crazy DPS, so it's possible, but pretty likely you're going to die. I don't have an imbued heart. I wish that I did. You can see I'm using Forgotten Brews to get up to 109. If you're in max mage, 109 or 108 will give you the same max hit as of right now. That will change with the new Delve boss if you're watching this video later. You can see her strings of attacks do get a little more complicated as the fight goes along, but it's really not too bad. we're back to ghosts here. Remember, we're just going to hit the 4 Sanitas ghosts, clear those out, and then jump right back into the normal world so that we don't waste our sanity. You totally are welcome to do it with the Venator Bow and Blowpipe. You have to be tick perfect for that. The problem is you end up losing just a lot of sanity because you're spending way more time in the Shadow Realm than you get back. So unless you're going for speedies or something like that with this fight, for your first KC, definitely don't do that. Just focus on maximizing your sanity. As you can see, I have plenty of anglerfish here. You really should not be taking too much damage in this fight. The reason being is that if you're making mistakes during this fight for anything other than the auto attacks, you're probably just going to die due to a lack of sanity. So it's in a weird spot where the food doesn't help you too much, so you might as well use it with the ghosts. Going back to leeches once again, taking a look at the configuration, hopping back out of the Shadow World. I will point out, you'll notice that I do have a Sang and a Ward there as well. That's for the Enrage phase. Now, I personally didn't end up using it. I know it's kind of up to personal preference on this. The cycle that she runs with you during the Enrage phase is a 4-tick cycle, so it can be easier to do kind of a 1-to-1, you attack and then you dodge, you attack and then you dodge. With a 5-tick weapon like a Shadow here, it's a little more awkward and nuanced. You kind of have to go by feel, but I really don't think the Enrage phase is that bad. I don't think you need a concrete cycle, so I was happy to just camp the Shadow. At this point in the fight, I was just praying to God that I remember this because, yep, tank 1 wave here and you are toast, but I did get it right. Thank goodness. And otherwise, this is the last boss I had for the Bloodtorva. I will say I really enjoyed these fights by and large. They are cool fights. I am not a big fan of the gatekeepy content. I did do contracts right after this, and you know, both of those just having to spend time and money to attempt the harder version of the fight. Yeah, not a huge fan of that. Glad to see that Jagex has said they're going to be moving away from that in the future here. Probably not doing any more like that. You can see I did tank a Tentacle here, and I still got the KC on this one, so you totally do have some room for mistakes. I think you'll see my sanity gets a little bit low going into Enrage, but nothing too unmanageable. Once you're at this point, you've done that third memory puzzle attack with the pillars. It's just going to be switching prayers every attack and dodging. You'll notice one thing that caught me off guard is that she attacks really fast here. There's definitely a decrease in the delay throughout the fight between attacks, so just be prepared for that. Like I say, be nice and full HP, full prayer going into this. She's always going to start with Mage, opposite to the normal fight, and then just switch attacks every attack. I don't use any tiles for this, I just look at where the tentacles are spawning and run in a way that will dodge them. Always tank an auto attack before you tank a tentacle because they only hit your HP, whereas the tentacles will hit your sanity. And yeah, you can see that we're not in any kind of cycle or something. If you're more of a rhythmic person, you might enjoy using the Sang instead. But here it is. Here's that beautiful Ancient Blood Ornament kit. I enjoyed this grind, and I hope you all do as well.